Now at 7:22 here, Big 550 KTRS. Aaron Katersky back for day two. This Boston bombing trial underway with jury selection. ABC News correspondent Aaron Katersky, good morning.
Well, good morning, McGraw. Day two means another batch of 400 potential jurors show up in the morning and in the afternoon at federal court in Boston to hear the judge's instructions and then to fill out questionnaires. There are about 100 questions on that page. Among them, would you consider imposing the death penalty on another human being? And if the jurors said they would consider it, well, then they can move on. But if they are unwilling to impose the death penalty, well, then they're automatically stricken, because under federal law, in a death penalty eligible case like the one against Johar Tsarnaev is, the jurors have to be able to say they're willing to impose it. They don't necessarily have to like it or agree with it, in terms of their own philosophy, but they have to be willing to consider it.
And you mentioned this yesterday. This is kind of interesting because is Massachusetts a death penalty state?
No, Massachusetts is famously not a death penalty state. It's abolished the death penalty, and even pre-trial public opinion surveys found that most people in the state do not want to see Tsarnaev put to death. The opposition is that strong, except, of course, when you get a little closer to the marathon victims themselves, in which case you may find some stronger sentiment. But the prevailing view is that Tsarnaev, at least according to these opinion polls, should not be put to death. However, this is the direction federal prosecutors want to go. They went to great lengths to get Attorney General Eric Holder to sign off, and so that's where they want to take the case. So much so, it seems, that they have not been willing to engage in any kind of plea negotiations with the defendant.
Yeah, that was brought up yesterday, too. Talk about that for a moment. How much do we know about this plea agreement, and did they really try? Or...
No, look, I think reports about it were overstated, quite frankly, and I don't want to get too far into what other media outlets are reporting, but there were initial discussions, but that seems like that was way early, and that there have not been negotiations recently, and even you can tell in court records. The defense has said, the prosecutors seem hell-bent on pursuing the death penalty. So whatever negotiations there were or may have been, clearly there haven't been any, in recent weeks.
Yeah. Boston is a lot like St. Louis, very tight-knit, very much of a community in a town where everybody knows everybody. And so I suspect it's really hard to find someone who wasn't affected in some way, shape, or form by the injuries that happened.
Oh, I agree, and the judge said that this has dominated the news media, and it's not that you have to not ever hear about the case; it's that you have to be able to forget everything you've heard or know or think you know, and judge the evidence fairly and impartially. And he said that to do that is a solemn obligation. He urged potential jurors, not to think of their would-be service as a burden, even though the trial could last up to 4 months, but as an obligation and a solemn civic duty. He also said that he would keep coming back to this notion of fair and impartial, not necessarily ignorant, but he said you don't need any special skills or education. You just need to be able to have a commitment to justice.
You got to wonder who can administer the death penalty and can put all of their biases aside as best they can, and then on top of that, have the next 5 months with nothing to do.
Look, it's a tall order, and the judge talked about hardships, and these are ordinary folks. You had some guys in jeans, women with handbags, young people with a book, and they come face to face in the closest proximity as anyone has ever had with Johar Tsarnaev, and they're going to be asked to sit in judgment of somebody who is accused of wreaking havoc on the city in a courthouse a couple miles from the scene, in a place that is still raw with emotion over what happened. It's a huge task, and that's why the initial jury pool is 1,200 people, largest jury pool anybody in Massachusetts can remember.
Tsarnaev was in court. What was his demeanor?
He didn't seem to show any particular emotion. He sat rather passively at the defense table, stood up when the judge introduced him to the crowd, and if anybody was, encouraged to shout at him or scream at him, the bailiff, preempted that with instructions to keep quiet when he entered the room. And he looked like a college student that he was, at UMass Dartmouth. Khaki pants, kind of a rumpled dark shirt, unkempt hair. sort of this scraggly beard. So he honestly could have walked out of any class at UMass and you wouldn't know the difference. And he didn't seem particularly interested in the people that could be chosen to decide whether he's executed.
Aaron, I'm your biggest fan, but handbags, I believe they're called European carry-alls these days.
I stand corrected.
Thank you very much. Aaron, be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
All right. 728 here, Big 550 KTRS, women in handbags. That's what a sexist comment that is. It could be a man in a handbag.
Well,
a man could
but
carry
he
a
didn't
catch.
See a man in it with a
clutch.
handbag.
You could have a clutch.
Well, you could.
Yeah.